confused about the other two videos, I will be linking these in the description or in the comments, right? So everyone can be directed to here. But for this video, we're gonna talk about who you should use for Acheron, right? Because I've been talking about Flame MC and I don't want to cause any confusion, but I don't recommend Flame MC for most players. This is an extremely high investment build, like I said, and it is very conditional on the enemy lineup, right? In terms of high investment, well, here's mine that I'm currently working on. It's crazy, all right? The MC wants speed, defense, effect hit rate, and effect res, right, on these sets. It's a very high investment build. Now, I've been fortunate enough to actually get pretty lucky and have this build almost like done and sort of like the best it can be. And what I've got here is actually pretty dang good for the actual build. And of course, I maxed out the talents, right? Because I intend to show off what the MC can do with the particular setup, right? And the main thing is like what I said is, well, first off, I actually should clarify this. Everything I've talked about is true and it's been tested to work, in case you were curious or what was unsure about it. Um, and I've got a lot of points like backing me up. You can research this if you want, but I will be talking about it when she actually comes out and obvious build video that I'm clearly working on, right? Like, or that's the intent of this, right? We're leading up to that. But yeah, so this build I don't really recommend for most players to do. You can do it like me if you have the spare resources or if you just want to, have the variety and whatnot. What I would recommend is for most players to prep a build for Gallagher, right? And I will actually pull it up so you can see. So if you want to prep for Gallagher, because again, that's who I would recommend using unless you want to do a different setup. Again, I'll talk about it here. To prep for Gallagher, there is the free-to-play light count from the MOC shop that they added. Max his thing out. He wants it, right? This is one of his best options, and it's basically ideal for what he wants to do. You can't farm the traces and stuff yet. He'll be new, but you're gonna want to put him on 4-piece break and whatever set that you want to run, right? I'm gonna be running Pinacoli 2-piece for the 5% ER with a break effect rope. The reason for this is because the 5% means he can skill basic skill for an ult rotation and get it in 4 turns instead of getting it in 5 turns without the ER rope or doing multi skill, right? I want to be skill point positive. Of course, if you do have the substats, right, you could run an ER rope. Again, if you have really good subs, do that, right? Go ahead and do that. Double up on ER even. You won't quite get 3-turn ult unless you're like spamming skill, but it will work, right? So basically all he really wants is break because he gets HP percent up. You can do healing, percent, or if he heals enough for you, HP, right? Make him tankier. Same thing with the orb. Of course, there's crit Gallagher if you really want to, or you're like crazy. But basically for Gallagher, right, you're just gonna give him as much break as possible. Make him tanky with the HP stats and give him speed so that he outspeeds the other characters and applies his buffs as much as possible, right? He really wants the speed so that he can actually have uptime on his ultimate, right, for the enemy, and obviously helping out Acheron and, well, generally healing because he can output pretty good healing. So yeah, that's really about it. It's pretty simple for Gallagher. And so I would recommend Gallagher over someone like the Flame MC. I'm actually going to show you this moment in stream where I was testing out my Flame MC build and how it can actually function while I go over the other whoopsies. While I go over the other builds, right? We're going to talk about this, so they actually pull it up. Right, so you can see the Flame MC, right? The taunt works as intended, and it is also pretty skill point efficient, right? As I said in my video, the MC is very matchup dependent, right? And it's going to be skilled players are going to make the use out of her kit and be able to manage the skill points properly, right? That's one of the big downsides, and as well as the team survivability. As you can see, chip damage does still go through, like I said, but I do actually clear this as MC solo sustain. Now this is a pretty bad matchup because this enemy can CC, and I don't, what is it? The taunt only lasts for 1 turn, right? So you can see with turn advancement on the enemy, the taunt goes away, and so he will attack the other people, and because of that, the MC survivability isn't the best, right? The MC can tank themselves and basically not die, but the rest of your team has the potential to still die because the MC's defensive capabilities for the team is really just blocking some chip damage. It's not going to work on, everything. And again, with this team in particular, I was pretty slow when actually fighting, so I didn't quite um, clear in a like fast time. But obviously, this would be different with a different enemy matchup and different DPS characters and all that. So again, this setup is pretty conditional. It is good. It does work the way you'd think, applying all the debuffs, getting your energy for Acheron, right? So if you do want to do this like what I'm doing, again, you can go ahead and do it, but definitely I would recommend using Gallagher over, a very high investment MC build. It'd be way easier for players to, you know, actually do the Gallagher build. And you can see the MC's tanking it, and that's one of the downsides right there. Effect res, right? I lost the 50/50 on that, so I right, got imprisoned. So it's a again pretty major downsides, not having the best solo sustain capabilities. And if again, as I've been saying, if you don't really find it comfortable, don't run it, right? Gallagher's gonna be the better pick, and most players should actually pick Gallagher, right? Just 100%. If you're free to play or a light spender or whatever, pick Gallagher. The only suggestion I would say if you don't pick Gallagher is if you want to use Japard with the Trinity Universal Market light cone, like instead of the MC, right? You could do that. Or if you really want to use Fushuan for whatever reason, you could. She buffs crits, that's better than most. Not going to be as good. Adventurine is a really good pick if you do get both characters because he will have a debuff on his ult and can run this light cone or run him whatever. Adventurine also becomes the best at E2 because he has more debuffs. So if you get him E2 S1, he'll have more debuffs for her and will be better than basically every other sustain for her specifically. Um, so yeah, that's really it. And builds for those characters are pretty self-explanatory, right? You just stack defense. It's pretty simple, right? If you do have further questions, of course you can come to my live join the Discord, right? Or watch further videos. I've been yapping, but again, Flame MC works as intended. You can see tanking, and again, I am taking chip damage, so while my fat head is in the way, you can see the MC is doing its job by drawing the aggro onto the MC whenever I got my skill up, right? And it would, again, if I had her, generate me a bunch of stacks, right? So sort of to go over the other characters, right? Because a lot of people may have been confused over my original video about who they should use, right? Because I was really just describing what characters work well with her, right? And so I think I gave that point across, but there's a lot of nuance to her kit and how she sort of functions, right? And it's hard to really get that across in a video, especially when I'm yapping so much about it. And the fact that, again, her kit just has a lot of, things about it and sort of how it functions in game. It's pretty complex in that regard in terms of what you have access to, right? And what you have to do to make her function at a high level, right? So yeah, again, like I can talk about it all day, how wacky and complicated it is, but the main thing here is for that's gonna lag. I'll try to pull it up on here so you can still see it. I don't know. Is that gonna work? Okay, maybe you can't see. Anyways, I can talk about it. So the main thing here is the defensive characters that people are gonna wonder about, right? They're gonna wonder about these preservation characters. Let me slide. No, I can't do that. I'm sorry. Yeah, so the preservation characters, right? There's March 7th, Japard, Fushuan, Aventurine, and Trailblazer. Again, any of them can use the light cone, but I would only suggest using Japard or Fushuan or again Aventurine if you do have those characters and want to use them, right? Both Japard and Fu and Aventurine would be better solo sustains for survivability, but MC just has this added functionality of stacking debuffs, right? And again, if the matchup is good and you manage your skill points well, you can actually run the MC as a solo sustain, right? If you wanted proof, I actually did it here in a slow setup, right? But it worked. So yeah, even in a long drawn out fight where the MC should be bad, still performed, exactly as intended. So I think that's pretty good. Yes, and actually before we go into the other sustains, I just want to mention the Harmony characters real quickly. In case you don't understand why they're not good, is that she needs debuff application and Nihility. And so unless you go E2 on her, E2 S1 on her, right, you also want her light cone. It's not worth running harmonies for the most part, as you won't get as much uptime in your ult, like no matter what. So just don't really run harmonies. You can do Rune May with Welt Pseudo Sustain, right? And if you look up Acheron guides, you'll probably see this around. I would only really do that though against imaginary weak enemies, and or if you are a high skilled player and can time Welt's, ultimate correctly and all that stuff. And there's also the downside of not having the light cone. I mentioned in my other video that you're kind of cooked if you don't have the one light cone, right? Tutorial, right? Because tutorial gives you the energy for Nihility characters, and this will therefore affect your uptime of Nihility buffs because they'll get their ultimates faster, right? And so that's what you want to do on almost all Nihility characters, or the side characters, right? You run them next to Pella. Oh my god, what happened here? Uh, you run the tutorial light cone next to Pella or like Silverwolf, and you would get the effect hit rate and extra percentage, energy, right? So that's what you would do. For the Welt setup, you would run Break Rope as well, or ER Rope. It's up to you. And also, you can see Pella dies there in the gameplay, but I still clear it. So yeah, the MC definitely does work as a soul sustain, in case anyone's wondering. So yeah, that's basically the preservation characters. Not too complicated. Again, harmony characters. She doesn't benefit from energy, so those guys are kind of worse than other harmony characters, if for frame of reference. So yeah. Anybody can run the. I'm jumping back and forth. Apologies, but anybody can run the Trinity Universal Market Light Cone like my MC here, if they're preservation, right? So that's really up to you to who to build. Again, wouldn't recommend harmony characters. As for abundance characters, I clicked on the wrong tab. As for abundance characters, it's basically the same thing as I said. I'll just show you. Ooh, my bad. Hoyoverse, don't snipe me. They're all in a similar tier. It's just you can if I were to put like a tier 4, I'd put March down, right? And then well, I don't know. If I put tier 4, I could split them up more evenly. I might do that, honestly. But just to assume, right? None of these guys have debuffs on them. And so except for Gallagher. So you aren't getting the most out of running these regular sustains, but Luocha is going to be skill point positive, and Ho-Ho will also keep you alive and give you attack. Her energy is kind of useless, except for she will buff, she will give energy to the other Nihility characters, but again, it's not really needed depending on your setup, so just keep that in mind. Use whatever sustained character you're comfortable with, but I definitely would recommend Gallagher for all players, especially because he will be free, right? So if you're worried about the team survivability, it wouldn't be just prep your Gallagher like I said earlier, right? Let's move on to Nihility characters and their builds, because all the defensive characters are pretty self-explanatory. Build them to tank, right, and speed. You're pretty good to go. All right, not doing too bad. This is already faster than the last recording that would have gone up earlier today. So yeah, Nihility characters, we're going to open up the light cones as well. I am going to 100% recommend Gwenaifen Pella for everybody, unless they have Silverwolf. If you have Silverwolf, you pick Silverwolf over Gwenaifen. It's that simple. Silverwolf plus Pella is basically her best setup for, and most reliable setup for all E0, teams for the most part. And it's just going to be your better pick, especially if you do have the tutorial light cone. Now, if you don't have it, you are kind of cooked, with your only real option being Pearls of Sweat on one of the characters. So, like, you'd put this on Pella mainly because she's going to be the one who basically stays there for all the teams, right? As where Silverwolf could do, like, with E1 Silverwolf, a one-turn ult with tutorial. If you don't have tutorial, you would just run something that gives you effect hit rate or something like that. You don't really have too many options here. Kind of limited, right? But yeah, Welt. I already mentioned Welt. Break Rope, imaginary enemies are ER Rope, right? Time your ult. Give him effect hit rate so he has enough to apply the skill. It's as simple as that, right? Kafka, same regular Kafka build, same thing with Black Swan. You build them like normal to run him with her. You don't really change anything. Again, that's only if you are really wailing, but as I said before, put them on a separate team. It's not really worth running all three of them together. Silverwolf, it's going to be the same regular Silverwolf build, although instead of like, because a lot of people tailor Silverwolf towards damage or break builds, I would probably focus more on speed. It can be whatever set you want, right? It doesn't really matter. And again, I haven't really talked about sets too much, but it doesn't really matter what set you run for your Silverwolf or Pella, right? Just hit high speed with high defensive stats and whatever effect hit rate you need, right? Silverwolf needs a lot of effect hit rate. Just to give you a frame of reference, one of Silverwolf's abilities, I believe, is like 85. And so for the boss enemy, you're gonna need like, I think it's 140 effect. No, wait, I went too high. It's like 96. Yeah, you need like 97 effect hit rate for like Silverwolf for her one ability that's at 85% base chance, right? And for somebody like Japard who's at 65, you need 100 and like what? 80? No, it's way lower. I think it's 147. Yeah, 157 for like Japard, right? Assuming you don't have his E4, right? Japard will need a lot more. Just to give you sort of an example, right? Things that will help you build that effect hit rate though are like Pan-Galactic on the characters, so you can run that on Silverwolf, especially if you need the extra effect hit rate, and it'll give you a bit of an attack for damage, right? Pella, if you have seen my Pella in the other video, you can build her like this. You don't have to run Wind Set. This is just my like crazy cracked setup that I've got going on with Pella. And this is the ER one. I'm currently have one that's giving me a more effect hit rate for the Luca light cone, but mine's S1. So of course I need a lot more effect hit rate. Or just get lucky, right? So yeah, you don't have to do this build, right? Just give them more speed than Acheron, and you're basically set, right? Although as high speed as possible with good survivability is what you're looking for and aiming for, right? The sets, you're gonna want to run Broken Neil or Pentacoli on these characters, whichever one's gonna help them for their ult rotation or buffing Acheron, right? It's not too complicated there. There's a couple of more, I guess, niche setups you can do with like Von Wax speed tech, but I'm not really too interested in that, all honestly, and most players won't even be able to achieve that. Sampo and Luca, regular builds, although again, they're not very good with her. Gweniphen, it's the same thing. I don't know if here, I can actually pull up my Gweniphen. I will be having her on tutorial because I want her to get her ult faster so that she will have more uptime on Fire Kiss and proc more debuffs, right? Because if she gets her ult, that's a forced trigger of her Fire Kiss debuff, right? So that's basically why you'd run that. And I'm doing mine on the same win set thing. Again, you don't have to do this. Just get high speed. Like 140 plus is basically what you're shooting for, pretty much. Just make her faster than Acheron will be. That's really it. Hopefully this answers some people's questions. Again, if you have any more, you can ask them down below. I will be answering your comments if you have a question. If you want me to cover a specific thing, I will do that. But again, anything that isn't clear so far with what I have, I will be obviously doing in a future video whenever she actually comes out. Yeah, so hopefully this helps for who you're building. Again, I would recommend highly to be using Silverwolf, Pella, right? If you don't have Pella, or sorry, if you don't have Silverwolf, you can use Gweniphen, right? These two characters are very accessible. Gweniphen's currently free, right? If you have Welt, you can use them, but keep in mind there is some anti-synergy with some of these light cones. It's not a big deal, just that is to be noted, right? And also Welt's buff isn't as strong as Gweniphen's. The Acheron's not really made for a dual DPS, but like I said, you can do pseudo-sustained Welt, and he'll be better for that setup. But if you don't have anything else, Welt is still a fine option, right? In terms of sustains, again, generally it's like this. Gallagher will be the better option for like 99% of players. The top 1% crazy people can do like what I'm doing with Flame MC, right? And that's basically the TLDR of this video, right? Just use Gallagher. Flame MC is for hyper sweats like me. Not really recommended. If you want to note about any more light cones, Kafka's light cone is notable on any of the other characters as this will buff their speed and give another debuff. So this could potentially be really good for them, right? Same with Silverwolf's Light Cone. That will do a similar effect, right? I think that's everything. Just build your characters with enough effect hit rate to proc the light cones, basically. Give them a lot of speed, and whatever keeps them alive, you'll be good to go, right? I think that's it. I'm not sure how many more questions I could answer, really. So, yeah, right, just in terms of teams, you'll run this for E0. If you want to know about E2 plus Acheron, basically is you can sub in a Harmony, assuming you still have good debuff application on your other characters. And again, you want to get her Light Cone before getting any Eidolons on her, alright? I highly recommend the Light Cone if you can get it. If you can't get it, it is what it is, right? Your best option for her would be Good Night, Sleep Well in terms of 4 stars, right? Yeah, I'll cut my yap in here. Again, if you have any questions, do that. Hopefully this helps you figure out who to use if the other video wasn't helpful enough. And yeah, it's not very complicated. There is more nerd stuff I could talk about if you really want to, but I don't know. It depends. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you later.